You should not get this. This is the Xbox branded ROG Ally that just came out from Asus not too long ago. It's the Z2A model that was supposed to fix what I didn't like about the first one, but after using it for a week, I can tell you right now, it's just not a good purchase. In fact, the original ROG Ally with the Z1 Extreme chip still performs better in a few key areas and costs less. So let's check them out. Now, this is not a side-by-side comparison video, but you can't ignore what the original does better when this upgrade costs more and delivers less. So we're going to break this down. I'll start with one thing that Asus did right, and that's just the build. The thing actually looks pretty good. It is a bit boxy, but the ergonomics of the handle are really nice. The Xbox direct grips are more ergonomic, and the white finish looks clean. The overall shape feels more natural in the hand than the first Ally. It's pretty lightweight, almost like suspiciously light, which I actually don't like, and it has a 7-inch 1080p 120Hz IPS touch display, so it feels similar if you've used the original, but the second you turn it on, the premium feeling kind of starts to fade a little bit. Under the hood, the Xbox Ally has the new Z2A chip, and that's going to be one of the big differences here. It's just not the good kind. It's a 4-core Ryzen processor with 16GB of LPDDR5 RAM and 512GB of SSD storage. That's a pretty big drop from the Z1 Extreme's 8 cores, and you can feel it in gameplay, which I'll show more of in just a little bit. In lighter indie titles, it's fine, but once you load up something more demanding like Cyberpunk or even just Sons of the Forest that I was playing it on, the frame drops are obvious. Even with the same AMD RDNA 2 graphics, it doesn't hold steady at 1080p without aggressive scaling. And because it's still running full Windows, boot times and background processes make it feel even slower than it should. And while it's trying to do these processes, the fans are loud, and even then, it still runs hot under load. So the original Ally definitely was not perfect, but it did handle these games smoother and with less thermal noise, which makes this newer one feel kind of like a step backwards from Asus. And I've said it in other videos, but it really starts to feel like Xbox's last grasp at remaining relevant. Xbox as a brand is just dying. Xbox Game Pass is getting more expensive than ever without having the same amount of value that it used to have. You can only get day one exclusives whenever you're paying for the top tier premium subscription model. And then you introduce a handheld that's pretty disappointing at the price range, and we'll touch more on that in just a little bit. And this is not a review of the Ally X, which I've seen some really great videos on and I do hope to bring to the channel soon. This one's focused on the cheaper model. Now let's talk about battery and power. Battery is definitely another weak spot for this console. It drains pretty fast, and you're lucky to get a couple hours of heavy gameplay before you have to reach for the charger. It supports USB-C charging, and while you do get 2 ports, which I do like, the charging rate caps around 20 watts in most cases. That's lower than the peak draw of the original Ally, which means longer recharge times and less sustained performance when it's plugged in. Now, talking back on the display a little bit, I think the display is okay. 1080p IPS, 120Hz refresh rate, the exact same in the original Ally, but at full brightness, it still felt dimmer than it should be. Even indoors, while it is acceptable, it just really was not bright enough for me, and it's hard to showcase this on camera, but in person directly next to the original Ally that I have, it just is darker overall. So if you wanted to play this outdoors, it just looks bad and you can't even really see what you're playing. And I don't know why it can't get brighter. That's kind of a strange move for me. Now the audio, on the other hand, is actually surprisingly solid. The dual speakers with Dolby Atmos deliver decent depth and some low-end responses. It's one of the few things about this model that does actually feel like an upgrade. The original Ally had a bit more of a shallow sound to it, while this new one has more depth and a bit more of a bassy punch to the audio, which I was actually impressed with. But specs and the technical stuff aside, what I was actually interested in was the experience of using the Xbox Anywhere branding that was all over this console. And this is where the disappointment really set in. Despite all of that marketing, this isn't an Xbox handheld. It still runs Windows, and that means setup headaches, background updates, and all the quirks that come with a desktop operating system on a portable device. That to me is why the Steam Deck is still the greatest handheld console that I have personally played, because the whole point of it is to turn it on and start playing games. I don't want a full desktop gaming experience whenever I'm just trying to quickly turn something on and get to playing. They did add an Xbox button to make switching between Game Pass and Windows and Steam easier, but it doesn't solve the core issue. It still feels like a tiny Windows laptop and not a console. Hey guys, so future editing query here. Right as I'm editing this video, there was a BIOS update for the Xbox Ally, and it actually changed how the operating system works from the Xbox perspective, and it actually made it a little bit better in my opinion. And so I literally just talked about how I didn't like the operating system because it still felt like a Windows handheld. But I'm going to show you really quick what this looks like. So right now you're seeing my Steam client, but if I wanted to go back to Xbox right here, now you have Game Pass as an option. You can go down to all of your games and scroll through it like normal. Now, I don't have a subscription to Game Pass right now, so I can't show you all the full features and benefits. But this is really much more of what I expected this handheld to have. It doesn't solve the performance issues, and maybe those will get a little bit better with time and future updates. But this is definitely what I wanted to see, just the ability to turn on, pick up, and game, but it's not perfect, and I'll show you why. So if I press the Xbox button as normal, right now we're in the Game Pass library, that's the Xbox operating system. If I press the Xbox button, and you see it has my previously played games here, and I still want to go to Steam, what's not perfect is that it still takes me to my Steam gaming client, right? Like it just looks like my normal Steam client, and I would prefer to see them integrate with like big picture mode. That's something they can very much do in the future. But if I close out of Steam entirely, it takes you right back to your Xbox operating system. If I want to open Steam again, it's right there and it's ready to go. Now, it is a little bit slow if Steam is completely shut down after you've restarted the system, so it's definitely not perfect, but I think this is a step in the right direction for what Asus is trying to do, and I'm excited to see what the future of this is going to hold. However, like I said, it does not solve the performance issues. So just wanted to make sure that my video was accurate at the time of filming. This video could literally be obsolete 2 weeks from now after some more updates, but I want to try to stay as on top of it as possible. It doesn't change my final thoughts on this system, which I'll share with you in just a little bit. Now, one of the things that I do like about having a system that does run desktop is being able to run something like Proton VPN, and I appreciate them for sponsoring this video. So when I'm testing new hardware, or if I'm somewhere public on hotel Wi-Fi or random networks, Proton VPN keeps that connection private and encrypted so my data and my uploads stay protected. You can try it for free, and it's still a great VPN service, but if you want to get 64% off the premium plan, check the link down in the description below. Now, one of the biggest sticking points for me on this handheld is going to be the price. At $600, the pricing model of this just doesn't make sense to me. There's not enough of a performance gap to not just get the older system from the Z1 Extreme. If I had to make a recommendation, it would be get one of the older system when it goes on a super sale this upcoming Black Friday, because this one's just not worth it at this time. One caveat I do want to say is that the original Ally and a lot of other gaming handhelds have had a lot of BIOS updates and things that have allowed it to be more efficient and run better, and this one being so new to the market, I know that is to come, and it's probably going to get a lot of improvements, but right now, I just cannot recommend it at this price. So when you look at the pros and cons list, sure, it looks better, it has slightly better ergonomics, but none of that really matters when it runs hotter, drains battery faster, and struggles with even simple gaming titles that the original didn't have any problem with. So if you already own the original ROG Ally, keep it. If you're thinking of buying this Xbox version, don't. That's really how simple it is. The Z2A model feels like a mid-range experiment that somehow costs high-end money. Until Asus or Microsoft commits to a true Xbox handheld with native Game Pass integration and console-style simplicity, this lineup is going to stay stuck between PC and console without the best parts of either. Really, there needs to be a big lean into a better operating system that allows the user to dive into gaming much more quickly on the go, instead of having to update the dang thing every single time you turn it on. And hopefully you realize that I'm talking about the base model Xbox ROG Ally, not the X. That one, like I said, looks very promising. I can't wait to get my hands on it and check it out. If you want to see a review on that, definitely let me know down in the comments below. That's a pretty expensive piece of hardware to purchase at $1,000 for a gaming handheld, but it might actually be worth it, whereas this one is definitely not. So hold on to your receipt if you end up picking one of these up, because you're probably going to need it. If you found this review helpful, I would love if you would hit the subscribe button so you join the Freaky Tech family. But thank you so much for watching. And again, I'm Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews. I'll see you next time.